Good evening and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In today's edition, dated 20th of June 2024, we are going to deal with the following articles with respect to your UPSC Civil Services examination. From the mains point of view, we will be doing two articles, that is with respect to the refugee issues, and then second with respect to Hindu Kush Himalayas and the associated issues of low snow this year, right? With respect to your prelims examination, we'll be taking four articles. The first being with respect to the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. Then we will be moving on to critical minerals. Then another cabinet decision yesterday which gave approval for Vadhavan seaport. And then lastly, we'll be doing with another cabinet decision that was taken yesterday with respect to offshore wind energy plants. So without further delay, let us begin our lecture. So the first article that we are going to take is with respect to the refugee issues in India. Why is this in news? The context being today, 20th June is referred to as the World Refugee Day, right? What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this news? Your GS paper 2 includes topics such as social justice and empowerment and India and its neighborhood relations, right? Although there have been no direct questions with respect to this topic from your GS paper 2, however, in 2021, your GS paper 4, that is with respect to ethics, integrity and aptitude, had a question with respect to refugee crisis, migrant crisis, so on and forth, right? And as we are moving towards the mains aspect, we'll be focusing more issues with respect to your comprehensive aspects such as GS4 as well, right? So what was the question in 2021? The question was, refugees should not be turned back to the country where they would face persecution or human rights violation. So this principle is known as principle of non-refoulement. Examine the statement with reference to ethical dimensions being violated by the nations claiming to be democratic with open societies, right? So this was with respect to the Western societies in particular. So we will be discussing what are the issues with respect to our own policies, what are the challenges, and then we will be briefly seeing what could have been written in this kind of question, right? So let us understand what is a refugee or who is a refugee. So Article 1 of UNHRC Convention 1951, that is, this convention was with the specific reference to refugees. It defines refugee as a person who has a well-founded fear of being persecuted for the reasons of his religion, race, caste, nationality, ethnicity, or being a member of a specific group or political opinion. If he goes back to the country where he faces persecution, that person is called as refugee. Now, what are the specific issues faced by the refugees? Right. So these issues are in the context of refugee, in the context of the country which is hosting the refugee, and especially with reference to India, we will be dealing the issues. Right. So the article was written by Shri Shashi Tharoor, who is a member of parliament from Thiruvananthapuram, and in 2021, he had sponsored a private member bill in the context of providing a refugee law specific to India. However, that bill could not be passed. So this again, on this occasion of World Refugee Day, he is again reiterating that we need to have a proper law and policy regarding how we as Indians deal with the issue of refugees, right? So what are the issues being faced by the refugees, right? So the first issue is with respect to legal issue. Now, since most of the crises originate in kind of a war-torn or strife kind of situation, they often are not able to have proper documentation. Then it leads to the persecution of refugees in the countries in which they go. Then again, in context of India, if we talk about, see, in India, there are two concepts. First is refugee and another is illegal immigrant. So entry and exit in India is regulated by two acts, first being Passport Act and Foreigners Entry and Exit Act. So these two acts do not recognize between an illegal alien and a refugee. So that is the first and originating that is the originating context of all this debate, that in India the laws do not recognize and differentiate between who is a refugee and who is an illegal person who has illegally entered India. So that is the first legal issue, and because there is lack of recognition, then it leads to persecution by various security agencies. Then second is with respect to lack of legal status when it comes to refugees. So again the same issue with respect to recognition is there. Then there are issues with respect to lack of basic services like healthcare, education and housing. Wherever they go, they face certain issues. You might have heard or seen news with respect to refugees and migrants who have come from, let us say, Pakistan, and who have been habilitated in Rajasthan or camps in Delhi. They again face all these similar issues with respect to lack of healthcare, education and housing, especially in the context of their children, right? Then there are issues with respect to lack of employment, right? So most of the employment that they can get is in the informal sector, and still they need to have some kind of identity when it comes to employment. So they are not able to get employment. Why? Perhaps because of linguistic barriers, perhaps because of social customs and norms. And often they get whenever they get employment, they get employment in kind of very kind of vulnerable right situations. For example, let us say we can say prostitution, right? So these kind of issues are also there with respect to the weaker sections such as women. Then there is a issue with respect to social integration. They are not able to assimilate or integrate themselves with the native population because of linguistic barriers, social barriers, food habits, clothing habits, so on and forth. And then lastly, there are issues with respect to security, right? Indian agencies again especially with respect to South Asian region, we can say that we have had a very bitter past with respect to the partition. And again, because of the two nation theory that was propounded by the Muslim League in the background, in the history, so we have had a very bitter past of past of partition. So again, security issues kind of have an apprehension that Pakistan for us creates a kind of existential threat, right? So that is why security agencies are often apprehensive about the migrants and migrants taking over. Again, there are issues with respect to economic security as well. When we are not able to sufficiently provide for our own natives, then again economic security creates a kind of additional strain. And that was the point of context. Because of the 1971 war, we had to go to war with Pakistan only because we were not able to economically justify the burden of refugees which were coming in flux from the back then eastern Pakistan. Now, what is the Indian framework with respect to regulation of refugees? The first and foremost being the Foreigners Act of 1946. It regulates the entry, presence and exit. However, the caveat here is that this act does not discriminate or distinguish between who is an illegal immigrant and then who is a refugee. So that is the challenge over here. In past, we have had our experiments with legislation such as Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, but this was very specific to providing citizenship from minorities of South Asian countries. However, we do not as of now have any kind of comprehensive and specific law. Now, what are the challenges that are faced by the Indian policy makers in framing a refugee policy? The first one being, as we have already discussed, that there is an uncertainty and with respect to the legal status. Then what was the issue? That we do not distinguish between immigrants and refugees and illegal immigrants, right? Then there is the second issue is with respect to the ad hocism in decision making. What do we mean by that? right? For example, we have had in our past, India has had a very rich history of accommodating various minorities and various immigrants and refugees, right? It dates back to historic times, and even we offered our resources and places to stay when Jews were facing persecution at the time of Second World War, and then a little bit interwar period, and then immediately after partition we had to accommodate minorities from the erstwhile East and West Pakistan. Then we also accommodated Tibetans when China usurped the region of Tibet in the past, and in past we have also accommodated uh, people from Tamil ethnicity when there was a crisis between the northern regions of Sri Lanka and the mainland. So, but still, there is an ad hocism in our policy, right? We do not have some principled stand. That is what Dr. Shashi Tharoor argues, that the decisions are based on the administrative convenience and ad hocism. So that is another challenge because we do not have a policy. Then another issue is with respect to the news created by detention and deportation, right? For example, in 2015 and 16 there was again a news with respect to migrant crisis with respect to Rohingyas. Now what happened is that it created a very bad image when we sent the refugees back to either their native countries and then otherwise back to the detention camps, right? So it leads to bad press as well as globally bad image. Then another issue that they face is with respect to discrimination in lack of social integration and cultural barriers that they face, and in turn we also face challenges with respect to formulation of policies and provision for land and housing for the refugees. Then there are issues with respect to security concerns. Again, we have already discussed that the South Asian region had a bitter past with respect to the partition. So another issue when we deal with this is that we have very porous borders, right? For example, borders with Pakistan are well guarded, right? But still there is porosity in the borders. But when we talk about borders with either Myanmar or borders with Bangladesh, first of all, we have tribes and communities which are living, for example, Nagas live both in Myanmar as well as Nagaland. So again, there are issues with respect to porous borders, which leads to influx of migrants. We will understand why it leads to influx. Second is with respect to South Asian region, there is a huge economic disparity and lack of opportunity when we compare India, let us say, with Bangladesh. So influx of Bangladeshis into India is similar to a problem that US faces in the context of Mexico, because Mexico has a cheaper labor. They want to improve their living standards and conditions. That is why they move towards the US border, right? Similarly, when we compare India and Bangladesh with respect to economic disparity and opportunities, there is a influx of people from Bangladesh into India, and more often so in the illegal manner. And then lastly is that because democracy has not taken root in these countries, especially in the context of South Asian countries. For example, even Dr. Ambedkar used to say that democracy in India, back then India was all of it, right? It is like a top dressing, right? For example, we have democracies in South Asian countries, but we do not have democratic morality. We do not have democratic values enshrined in us. So what happens is that we see situations like junta taking over Myanmar and ousting the democratically elected leader. Similarly, we see that there is a rise of majoritarianism in these countries. So what it leads to is that there is a fragility when it comes to the socio-political environment. And once there is a fragility in the socio-political environment, it leads to persecution of minorities. This is what exactly happened back then when Chakma tribes were persecuted in Bangladesh, and they had to move and settle down in the northeast region of India. So that again remains a kind of challenge. Next is with respect to economic and resources concern. Again, because of not enough opportunities in these countries, it leads to huge influx of people who come from countries like Bangladesh, right, countries like Myanmar, into India in the search of economic opportunities. And when we are not able to fulfill the economic aspirations of India as well, because India, as you know, of it today, has become one of is the largest country with respect to population in the world. So it again, there is a economic and resource concern when it comes to refugees in India. So all in all, what is the way forward? These are all the challenges with respect to policy formulation in India. While writing your answers, let us say, what you'll have to write, that these are the challenges that are presented in front of Indian policymakers when it comes to framing a refugee policy. But still, we need to find a way forward, right? So way forward, you can say, in the context of first being principle of non-refoulement has to be kept in mind, right? What is the principle of non-refoulement? The principle of non-refoulement says that people who are suffering, or they have a fear of being persecuted in the name of, let us say, religion, race, caste, ethnicity, political opinion, so on and forth, they should not be sent back to the country of origin of persecution, right? So first is that we should honor the principle of non-refoulement. Next is that even our DPSP says that we have to uphold the dignity of women and children and abjure the activities which violate the integrity and dignity of women. So even let us say, even if they do not have kind of fundamental rights which the citizens of India enjoy, but still our DPSPs guide us to give them proper protection, right? Next is with respect to the Supreme Court opinion in NHRC versus Arunachal Pradesh case. This was case in the context of Chakma tribes, right? Chakmas are what? These are Buddhist people, Buddhist minority in Bangladesh. When they faced persecution, they came and settled in Arunachal Pradesh, but because of again demographic issues with the local tribes, they were being again there were challenges in assimilation. But what in this particular case, Supreme Court opined that state cannot forcibly evict the migrants even if they do not have particular documentation, right? So state has to, till the time state is able to accommodate or make some proper policy or rehabilitation steps, state cannot forcibly evict the refugees. So that was the opinion of Supreme Court in this particular case, that is NHRC versus Arunachal Pradesh. So this acts as a guiding light for the state in the context of providing protection and adequate living standard for the refugees. Next is that we go on the lines of what Dr. Shashi Tharoor's bill had suggested, and we need to have a proper asylum law on the lines of that particular private member bill that Dr. Shashi Tharoor had suggested. So moving on, let us try to solve this PYQ that was there in the that was the motivation of all this talk, that refugees should not be turned back to the country where they would face persecution or human rights violation. This is exactly what is principle of non-refoulement. What is this is what it says. Examine this statement with reference to ethical dimensions being violated by the nations claiming to be democratic with open societies, that is Western countries it was talking about, or Western countries with Western liberal values, that is what it was talking about. Moving on, what are the ethical dimensions which are being violated by the countries of West in this context? Is that first being, we can always argue that it is the historical responsibility of the West, because they drew the lines which are today, they were the ones who drew the lines. For example, let us say Sykes-Picot Agreement. That is the whole sole reason for the issue between Israel and Palestine. Again, similarly, you would see that the international boundary between India and Pakistan, that was drawn in very much haste, and they are responsible for the present day strifes even in, let us say, Middle East or Indian subcontinent, we can say. Then again, the dimension being violated is that they have been they call themselves the superior leaders of the world. They call themselves themselves the guardians of democratic values. So they have to balance the global responsibility with the national interest. But in the present context, let us say we see the examples of America, that Donald Trump, he started creating a international wall between the US and Mexican border, so that there is a difference between what they say, what they preach, and what they do. Then most of the countries, for example, 140 out of 190 countries are signatory to the above convention, or 1951 convention on refugee, and most of the countries among it include the Western European and Western countries. So even though they are signatory to those particular conventions, still they are not accepting, and especially in the context of migrants from MENA countries and African countries, there is an inhibition. And as seen in the European crisis of 2015 and 16, especially in the context of countries like Hungary, these countries were in news with respect to discrimination that the refugees faced. Then again, it is against the democratic values and virtues of the institutions. Next point is that, as Immanuel Kant would have said, act as if your action becomes the universal moral command. So on one hand you say something else, and on the other hand you do something else. You act in a way that you are avoiding the refugees. So how can you dictate others to do something else? So this kind of duality needs to be avoided. Next argument that we can say that the dimension that is being violated is that, let us say again, in a strife torn country there can be many factions, right? There can be one party, and there can be one offensive party, and then there can be a defensive party. But refugees are the ones who are not even taking part in war, right? They are the victims of those wars, and again they suffer first in the country of their origin, and next in the country where they take refuge. So this suffering needs to be ended, and it is only ethical that they get assimilated, or they get proper facilities with respect to healthcare, education, and proper living spaces in the countries, right? Then again, justice and rights based approach also suggests that principle of non-refoulement be followed. And the last, with respect to our Indian values, is a value of universal empathy, Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, Atithi Devo Bhava, and then universalism of Dr. Ravindranath Tagore. So these are the principles that these are the dimensions that are either violated or should be kept in mind by the Western countries. So this is all with respect to the solution to this particular question. Now let us move on to another interesting topic, that is with respect to Hindu Kush Mountains. What is the context of this news? That there has been a recent report of International Center of Integrated Mountain Development, which has suggested that the snow on Hindu Kush Mountains is staying for a lot lesser time when it comes to the snow on Hindu Kush Mountains is staying for a lot lesser time before melting into the rivers. What is the syllabus mapping with respect to this? Your GS paper 1 says that world geography is part of your syllabus, and resource distribution amongst GS world geography is part of your syllabus. And in past there have been questions, how will the melting of Himalayan glaciers have a far-reaching impact on the water resources of India? So Himalayas are the perpetual concern when it comes to UPSC, and in past there has been another question with respect to Himalaya being the third pole, right? North Pole, South Pole, and Himalaya being the third pole. The context was the permafrost region is always also found in the Himalayan region, right? So now let us first see what importance of Hindu Kush Himalayas. Hindu Kush Himalayas can be seen in the context of this particular boundary, right? So this boundary in the blue color reflects Hindu Kush Mountains, and again in this particular boundary, this region which is shaded over here reflects the glacial region, right? So again we can see that parts of Ladakh, Himachal and Uttarakhand and the northeastern region of India are part of permafrost region, right? That is the Himalayan permafrost region and a part of Hindu Kush Himalayas. So what is the spread and extent of Hindu Kush Himalayas? That is 3500 kilometer, and these are spread over 8 countries. These facts can be important for your prelims examination as well, and the analytical part can be important for your mains examination. So Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Hindu Kush are spread over Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, India, Nepal, Myanmar and Pakistan. These are all the 8 countries. Now the important significance is that these are the contributors to 23% of 12 major rivers. The runoff comes from the Hindu Kush mountains. The 12 major rivers of this region are first being Amu then Indus, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Irrawaddy, Salween, Mekong, Yangtze, Yellow River and Tarim. Please go and see the maps and locate all these rivers in this particular region, right? Now what is the reason behind low snow persistence this particular year, right? So as we can see that this particular article has said that prolonged and intense La Nina conditions prevailed over this year. And what was the reason behind the low snow persistence? Because of the lack of, there was a weak western disturbance that was found this year. Now let us understand what is western disturbance and how it contributes to net snow in the Himalayan region, right? So in the months of September, October and November, there is a phenomena that is called as western disturbance, right? So western disturbance rises over the Mediterranean Sea in the form of water, and then they downpour over there in the Hindu Kush region. Now when they downpour over here in the Hindu Kush region, because of low temperatures, it falls directly as snow. But what happened this year, because of the global conditions like La Nina and El Nino, and similarly there was a rise in the mean sea temperatures, and because of the high sea temperatures, western disturbances could not take place on right time first and then in the adequate amount. So this is what led to the erratic distribution of snowfall this year, and conclusively it led to low snow persistence. Now what is the outcome of low snow persistence? There are going to be issues with respect to irrigation, because what happens is that whatever snow that gets on the ground in the winters, it melts in the summers and is responsible for close to 23% of river runoff. Then there is going to be hydropower urgencies. Already the peak demand of electricity has shot up because of the high summers this year, and lack of water in the reservoirs is going to lead to hydropower low hydropower output. Then there can be issues with respect to drinking water. We are all seeing the examples of Delhi. For example, there are crises, and again Lieutenant Governor is taking meetings with respect to tankers being supplied on right amount, in the right number and on the right time or not. So all these are conducive, or all these are examples of impact of low snow persistence, because of which there was low water in the rivers. Then there can be issues with respect to interstate water disputes. In the past, we already conducted one MCQ in our DNS session with respect to Yamuna River Board. Why was that thing in news? It was in news because of distribution debates over distribution of water of Yamuna between various states, right? So that is going to be there with respect to interstate water disputes, and it can also lead to transboundary water disputes, for example Indus water, right? So what is the way forward in this context? We need to suggest certain way forward. So first one being sorry, reforestation with native trees. So native trees will lead to snow being melted slowly, right? When the snow will be melted in a slower manner, it will lead to perennial supply, right? Then there needs to be arrangements of better weather forecasting and early warning systems. What will it lead to? Once there is better weather forecasting, it will lead to a balanced usage of water as the resource by the people. And once balanced usage is there with respect to water, it will lead to better water management. Next is that we need to curb black carbon emission. Now, what is responsible for black carbon emission? Diesel. When people go to these pristine places with their 4x4 diesel vehicles to places like Manali, so on and forth, right? So what happens is that diesel vehicles emit a compound that is known as black carbon. Now, when black carbon settles over snow, it leads to its faster melting, right? So that is again responsible for low snow persistence. So what is the solution over here? Regulated tourism, and diesel vehicles must be banned over there in those places. That can be one suggestion. Next is that improving water infrastructure in the context of dams, so on and forth, and better reservoir management. Then there is a need for regional cooperation in sharing data on glaciers. For example, glaciers are, again, there can be transboundary glaciers as well, and their rivers are also transboundary. For example, China does not share the data with respect to either glaciers or the river water of Brahmaputra. So we need to sign treaties and agreements in the context of these phenomena for better water management. Next point can be with respect to community involvement and reduced emissions to mitigate increased sea surface and ground temperatures. As soon as we are able to reduce the emissions, it will lead to lesser warming of the seas. And once there is relatively lesser warming of the seas, these western disturbances will again go towards the status quo. So these are the suggestions that we can put forth with respect to water management, river management, and issues of melting snow at a higher pace in the Himalayas, right? So question can come in different form as well. So, but the points and arguments will remain almost the same, right? With this, we move on to the prelims section for today. So the first MCQ that we have taken is in the context of a picture that appeared on the front page of the Hindu, in which a mama rhino is crossing with her calf, right? So this picture was taken in Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. Now, what are the key facts that are there with respect to the rhino? First of all, let us take a look at the location of Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. It is located in the state of Assam. And where is it located? Very close to Meghalaya border. And again, we'll see that it is located in the central part of Assam, that is very close to Meghalaya, right? So again, syllabus mapping, and then it is a place where Indian Rhino Vision 2020 was initiated. What are the key facts to remember when it comes to Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary and rhinos is that it is located in the flood plains of Assam, near the banks of river Brahmaputra. The key feature of this particular wildlife sanctuary that in the whole world, the highest density of rhinos is found in Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. This does not mean that highest number of rhinos are found in Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. Obviously, the highest number is found in Kaziranga National Park, right? But highest density, because it is relatively very small as compared to Kaziranga National Park, but very high number of rhinos are found over there in the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, which leads to high density of rhinos, right, in Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary. Now UPSC has also changed its pattern, and they are asking the features, particular features, gestation period, so on and forth, the issues with respect to the species. So let us see a few things about rhinos. What is the nature of this particular animal? Generally, rhinos are solitary beings. You will not see many rhinos going together in one group, right? So rhino is a vegetarian and a solitary animal. They try to keep it to themselves. Next, with respect to the IUCN status, they are classified as vulnerable. The CITES classifies rhinos in the appendix 1, right? Then now let us see what is the gestation habit when it comes to rhinos. So they have a very slow reproduction habits, and the period of gestation of a female rhino is close to 15 to 16 months. That means a female rhino takes 15 to 16 months for giving birth to one calf, and then it also always gives, generally it gives birth to a single calf, and then later on till the calf is 1.5 to 2 years old, it lives in the constant protection of its mother. Right, so you can see this particular picture in which mama rhino is going along with the baby calf in the protection. Now let us solve this particular practice question. In the past, there has been a direct question on one horn rhinos. With respect to one horn rhinos, consider the following statement. It is listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List. Yes, we just saw that this is listed as vulnerable species in the IUCN Red List. Next is the gestation period of one horn rhino is 12 to 13 months, that is 1 year. Is it so? No, the gestation period is close to 15 to 16 months as we just read. So this statement is incorrect. Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary holds the highest number of one-horned rhinos in the world. So no, again this is again incorrect. The density of rhinos is highest in the world when it comes to Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, but the mark of highest number of rhinos in the world, the rank goes to Kaziranga National Park, right? But the highest density is there in the Pobitora Wildlife Sanctuary, right? So which among the following, how many the statements are correct or incorrect? Only one statement is correct, that is the statement 1. Moving on to the second topic in the context is critical minerals. The news appeared on page number 10, and the news reads that India and USA are working on to scale up partnership on critical minerals. So that is the news. Now let us understand a thing or two about the critical minerals, right? So there are two criteria which need to be followed for classification as critical minerals. The first one being that it is essential for functioning of modern tech. So for example, they are useful in the development of semiconductor chips, your mobiles, air conditioning facilities, batteries, so on and forth. And next is that supply chains could be disrupted. So if there is a threat to the supply chain of these particular minerals, some of these minerals, they are classified as critical minerals. Then when it comes to globe, the global leader in the production and supply chain management of these critical minerals is China. So here we can see the global distribution of critical minerals, and how China has kept a stronghold over here on the supply chain management. So what are the regions of the world? Regions of Australia, Western Australia, southern part of China, Myanmar, western part of USA, northeastern part of USA, southern part of South America, and some parts of India, and certain southeastern parts of Africa are important when it comes to the distribution of critical minerals, right? So what have been the recent steps that have been taken in the context of development, either development or management of critical minerals in India. The first one being that India is co-investing in lithium resources project along with USA in South America. So again, why is lithium important? Lithium is seen in the batteries from let us say your mobile to electric vehicles. So lithium is gaining prominence over here. So we are also investing and exploring opportunities when it comes to exploring rare earth deposits in Africa. We have made a joint venture by the name of Kabil. It is a joint venture between NALCO, NACL and MECL. The objective behind establishment of Kabil is exploration and management of rare earth minerals and critical minerals. We have also gone in partnership with Australia, that is known as Critical Mineral Investment Partnership with Australia, with the objective of providing a hassle-free network of critical minerals with respect to Indian industries. And then recently we have gone in partnership with USA, that is Mineral Security Partnership we have entered with the United States of America. So with this information, let us try to solve this particular MCQ. Statement 1 says, Khanij Bidesh India Limited, that is Kabil, is a company fully owned by the government of India. Let us read the second statement. Kabil aims to identify, acquire, develop, process and make commercial use of strategic minerals in overseas locations for supply in India. Okay, what are the options? Both statement 1 and 2 are correct. Is the statement 1 correct? Did we read about it like this, that Kabil is a fully owned company of government of India? No, Kabil is not a fully owned company of government of India. It is a joint venture between government of India, NALCO, NACL and MECL. So statement 1 is incorrect. That leads to elimination of A and B. And also C. So statement D is correct. Statement 1 is incorrect while the statement 2 is correct. Moving on to another interesting another interesting news that appeared on multiple sources within the newspapers. So what is the context of Vadhavan seaport? The context is that cabinet has cleared Vadhavan seaport and it has allocated 76,200 crore for the land acquisition when it comes to Vadhavan seaport. So it is going to be India's 14th major seaport, and the key feature with respect to this port is that as of now country has 20 million TEUs of capacity of all the ports combined. We have the capacity of 20 million TEUs. TEU is a unit of measurement of goods, right? So again, this Vadhavan seaport alone is going to have a capacity of 23 million TEUs. So what can UPSC frame question like? They can go for framing a question like the creation of Vadhavan seaport has the potential of doubling the capacity of Indian ports. So this statement would be considered as correct, because again the present capacity is 20 million TEUs and it alone will enhance the capacity of Indian ports by 23 million TEUs, right? So let us see the location of seaport and let us see the location of let us take the opportunity to see the location of other major seaports as well in India. So where is it located? It is located in Palghar district of Maharashtra. It is going to be a deep seaport. Again, for the connectivity of India in Sagarmala, internal connectivity between all the ports and major destinations, it is going to be a key project as when it comes to internal connectivity of India, that is Sagarmala, and India's ambition to reach Middle East through IMEC corridor is also going to be fulfilled via this particular port, and the tentative capacity of this port, as we have already discussed, is going to be 23 million TEUs, right? So what are the other major seaports? We can count over here that there are 13 major seaports. The first one being that is called as Prasad Mukherjee seaport. It is the oldest seaport in India and the only seaport that is located on river. Then when we come to Odisha, it is Paradip Port, Vishakhapatnam Port. When we come to Tamil Nadu, there is Ennore and Chennai. Ennore is the only port in India as of now which has been listed as a company. Then we have a Port Blair port. Then we have Tuticorin port. Then when we all these three are in Tamil Nadu. So while reading over here, we can see that the highest number of major seaports as of now are in Tamil Nadu, right? When we come to Kerala, there is only one, that is Cochin. Next, in Karnataka, there is one seaport, that is New Mangalore. In Maharashtra, as of now, there are three seaports. First being Mumbai, second being JNPT, and third being Marmagaon is in Goa. So Maharashtra has as of now two seaports, major seaports. And then lastly, Kandla seaport in Gujarat. But when Vadhavan seaport is again completed, Maharashtra will be having Mumbai seaport, again JNPT, and Vadhavan seaport. So JNPT as of now is India's busiest seaport, right? So based on the information that we just received, let us try to solve the MCQ. Consider the following statements with reference to major seaports in India. Karmajar seaport is the only major port organized as a company. Yes, Karmajar seaport, or earlier known as Ennore seaport, is the only seaport in India which is organized as a company. So statement 1 is correct. Sama Prasad Mukherjee port, that is Kolkata, Haldia seaport, is India's oldest major river port situated on the western coast of India. So we need to read the statements very carefully. As of now, till now, this statement was correct, but the location given over here is wrong because it is located on the eastern coast, right? So statement 2 is incorrect. Mumbai port is the busiest port in India in terms of container traffic. We just learned that the busiest seaport in India when it comes to container traffic is JNPT. Again, it is located in the state of Maharashtra, right? So only which of the statements are correct? Only statement 1 is correct and the rest are being incorrect. Moving on to the last topic for today, that is wind energy projects. And again, the inspiration for this particular topic as well as the previous topic was the cabinet decision that was taken yesterday. As of now, what is the context? The cabinet has approved India's first offshore wind energy project. So as of now, we had various onshore wind energy projects which are contributing to close to 40 gigawatts of energy being produced through wind energy. But Union Cabinet has yesterday approved India's first offshore wind energy project. That means that these projects will be located in the high seas, right? So they have approved two projects of 500 megawatt each. Collectively 500 would be 1 gigawatt project. First one being at Gujarat, and other being at Tamil Nadu. Now the key points to remember over there in this news is that what is the advantages of having offshore wind energy turbines or offshore wind energy projects, right? So here the first advantage is that it produces clean energy, and more importantly, land is not wasted over here because we are installing the wind projects in the high seas. And then next advantage over here is that since wind reaches higher speed because there is no obstruction. See, for example, over here on the, let us say, we take the example of Gujarat. If we install a wind energy project over here close to 120 nautical miles of the seashore, and we install a project over here that is within the land. So over here, that the advantage in the sea is that there is very less obstruction and wind flows very freely. So what we can do over here is that we can install larger turbines and there is less disturbance or disruption, so energy production is higher. So that is why when turbines are installed in sea, the sizes of turbines are kept much larger because because of the higher speed, larger turbines can also be turned over there in sea. Now key facts to remember over there is that the leading producer of offshore wind projects in in the world, the first one is China, the second highest producer is UK, and the third highest being Germany. When it comes to India, the nodal ministry for these particular projects is Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, as is in the case of onshore sea projects, wind projects. So what is the policy with respect to offshore wind projects in India? The guiding policy is offshore wind policy that was developed by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy in 2015, and this says that India has the rights reserved till its exclusive economic zone when it comes to installation of offshore wind projects. However, the challenge might lie in the transmission of that energy to the base. Now, what are the potential zones that have been classified as per the offshore wind policy of 2015? The coasts of Gujarat and Tamil Nadu have been considered as the most fertile coasts when it comes to production of wind energy, and the target of India is 30 gigawatt of offshore wind energy by 2030. As you see in you can see in the map over here, what are the most crucial zones when it comes to wind speed. The southern tip, southeastern tip of Tamil Nadu and Gujarat are considered to be the hot spots when it comes to the installation of offshore wind energy projects, right? So based on this, there has been a question on renewable energies in past, that is in 2014 there was a direct question over here, and let us try to solve a practice MCQ. Consider the following statements. Offshore wind energy farms are located in water bodies, typically in coastal areas or high seas. Yes, this statement as of now appears to be correct, so let us just mark it correct, right? Moving on, offshore wind speeds are generally lower and more variable compared to onshore wind speeds. So what did we just read? We read that because there is no disruption in the wind supply, right? This is a common sense that when the wind energy project is located over here on land and wind is flowing right from this direction, there is going to be, let us say, a disruption. But when this particular farm is installed in sea, right, high seas, and the wind is flowing this side, there is going to be no disruption. So common sense dictates that offshore wind speeds are generally higher and more and less variable. That means the offshore wind speeds are constant, right? So statement 2 is incorrect. India produces more than 40 gigawatt of electricity through offshore wind energy production. Now, did we just read that India produces 40 gigawatt of electricity through onshore or offshore? These are going to be the first project over here in the offshore category, right? So India, after the completion of these projects, India will be producing 1 gigawatt of electricity through offshore projects. As of now, India produces close to 40 gigawatt of electricity, but that is on onshore electricity projects. So statement 3 is again incorrect. How many of the statements are correct? That is only one, right? So with this, we conclude the session for today. I hope to meet you soon. Till then, stay tuned, stay focused, and keep studying. Have a good night.